Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of the long-awaited trailer for Spider-Man No Way Home, a film now confirmed to blow open the live-action Spider-Verse with past franchise villains we never thought we'd see in the MCU. Well, some of us thought we would. And it's all thanks to Doctor Strange being the cool dad to a teen with cold feet. Cold because Wang left the Sanctum freezer open to get some hunk-of burning fudge. And yeah, this trailer dropped on August 23rd, which is insanely the date Wanda Maximoff and Vision had hearted on their calendar in WandaVision. Coincidence? Not here at New Rockstars, where our prayers to Mephisto are inevitably answered. So much to break down. How these alt-universe villains got here, how this fits in with the other multiversal MCU titles we've been talking about, what other Spider-Verse cameos could be happening now. So let's break this down, frame by frame, for every detail you might have missed. Okay, the trailer opens with the three first notes of the 60s animated Spider-Man theme. Spider-Man, Spider-Man.
Oh, look at this.
Peter and MJ are on a rooftop reading through news headlines in the New York Post, reading Peter Parker and his Spider Minions, with an image of Peter's big yearbook photo head on Spider-Man's smaller body. Puppeting marionettes with Ned, and it looks like MJ's face is on them. Oh, don't do them like that. But then on the back side of the newspaper, it looks like Pray for New York. And then awesome detail here in the graffiti in the background, a nice little nod to Ditko for Steve Ditko, co-creator of Spider-Man with Stan Lee, and the artist who inked much of the trippy Doctor Strange artwork that is inspiring this movie. Now, Spider-Man Far From Home ended with Spider-Man publicly revealed as Peter Parker with this same photo in a doctored video from Mysterio that made his death from a ricocheted Stark drone bullet that he actually fired look like Peter ordering the attack, as well as the full attack on London. That video was released by Quentin Beck's team after his death and was broadcast by J. Jonah Jameson, host of the DailyBugle.net, with J.K. Simmons reprising his role after playing it in a different cinematic universe. That was the Sam Raimi trilogy. And in those movies, the Daily Bugle was actually a print newspaper, as it seems to be in Sony's separate Venom and Carnage universe, but here in the MCU, it's an InfoWars-inspired online outlet. Perhaps why they're not reading a print version here. MJ jokes about the gossip that Peter could hypnotize females, referring to a real thing in certain types of funnel-weaving spiders in which the males produce pheromones to cause females to enter a passive trance-like state. While that's not really one of Peter's powers, he does in this movie ask Doctor Strange to memory wipe all of society, and maybe guilt over MJ's gaslighting bit is one of many memories that Peter decides he does not want to erase, actually. We see the direct aftermath of the Far From Home post-credit scene as Peter and MJ flee the Penn Station corner to zip through Times Square as J. Jonah Jameson's voice trumpets Peter's identity. The giant screens project that same yearbook photo with Peter's face half covered with the Spider-Man mask, an image that has appeared on the cover of several Spider-Man comics, but memorably on Spider-Man 366 in 1992, when Red Skull and Taskmaster tricked Peter with the return of his parents. And Peter finds himself in custody, cuffed to the table, confronted with this photo, it looks like, of Mysterio's body. Now, Peter's wearing his nerdy, the physics is theoretical but the fun is real shirt, which he was also wearing on the day Tony Stark dropped him off after the Civil War airport battle. Now, the guys questioning him based on their patches are from the DODC, that's Department of Damage Control, the same agency that cleans up the Avengers' messes seen at the start of Homecoming. Looks like now they're also the feds who step in whenever an Avenger gets in legal hot water. And it's here where some fans are still speculating that Matt Murdock, Charlie Cox from the Netflix Daredevil, could appear as Peter's defense attorney. I will say it is interesting how the frame cuts off the face of the guy on the right with his sleeves rolled up, with arms as hairy as Charlie Cox's arms, warm enough to get one through a Sanctum winter. I will say he seems a bit aggressive with those files to be Peter's defense attorney, but I don't know, maybe he's really mad at Peter let his cover get blown. I'm not really sure though. I will say this guy seems to have a slightly different body shape than Charlie Cox does. The files Peter looks through could be all the structural damage left behind in Spider-Man's wake over the years, like the Washington Monument, the Staten Island Ferry, and now, since they assume those Stark drones were all controlled by Peter the whole time, all the damage we saw in Far From Home. Then a wide shot shows Midtown Science and Tech. Now in the skyline, you can make out the tower that was once Avengers Tower, which was recently remodeled to be given an atrium, with a nearby sign on the ground level reading, "We are so excited to show you what comes next," with the numbers 1, 2, 3, and possibly a hint to the Fantastic Four. Now the popular theory is that the building could become Reed Richards' Baxter Building, and now that Spider-Man director John Watts is directing the Fantastic Four film for Marvel Studios as well, I think that's a strong possibility. Now on MJ's walls are some of her sketches, including the same one she did of Coach Wilson, that was Hannibal Buress' character in Homecoming when she was drawing people in crisis. Peter heads into school with Ned and MJ all harassed harassed by protesters. Behind them is Flash Thompson, now with blonde hair. Who does this guy think he is? Natasha Romanoff? Now, some of the signs in the distance are from people supportive of Peter. That's nice to see. Looks like we heart Spider-Man head, or Editor John thinks we heart potato. Actually, one sign puts Peter in devil horns with devil in disguise. Okay, don't you dare say it.
No, I don't think I will.
Okay, I'll say it, Mephisto. Only because the plot here does feel a bit similar to the 2007 One More Day storyline, in which Peter asks Doctor Strange to save Aunt May's life, but then ends up making a deal with Mephisto that involves the world forgetting that he's Spider-Man, that also requires him to split up with Mary Jane. Now, many readers were not huge fans of that storyline for how it retconned the character completely at the time, so much so that Marvel later had to kind of backpedal a lot of the implications of it. So I think while One More Day may influence the setup of this movie, the second and third acts look like they're going in very different directions. Peter and MJ flee helicopters that surround them atop a bridge, probably also part of the chase in the minutes after Mysterio outed him. Now they're actually on the Queensboro Bridge, which runs alongside that Roosevelt Island tramway, the famous setting of the showdown in the first Sam Raimi film between Spider-Man, Green Goblin, and Mary Jane, and the people in New York!
You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us!
Peter faces a bunch of gawkers from his fellow students at Midtown High. On the screen looks like the Midtown Morning News with host Betty Brant live on the scene, which I think would be right outside this high school. Now, for her to be reporting on this would be a bit of a conflict of interest, considering she and Ned used to date. Now, as Peter trudges through the high school, in the deep background are the science and technology murals that include the face of Howard Stark, with the Starks now probably feeling further away from Peter as he drowns in public scrutiny. And since this is a shot of a bunch of young extras, naturally the dude in the Letterman jacket on the right looks directly into camera. Then a shot of the camera rushing in on Aunt May and Peter's living room. They're watching J. Jonah Jameson's Daily Bugle show on the TV. This could be the moment authorities swarm their home to detain them for questioning. We actually see Ned and Aunt May in an interrogation room. Peter sees decorations showing plumpy little Doctor Stranges with witches' hats as Halloween decorations, giving him the idea to ask Doctor Strange for help. Now remember, in Far From Home, Mr. Dell thought the attacks were the doing of witches.
What do you think it is?
You know, being a man of science, witches.
Which we later saw him looking up on his phone. The events of WandaVision were set before Far From Home, suggesting that Mr. Dell's fear could have come from reports of the Scarlet Witch and Agatha Harkness in nearby New Jersey. And now Peter is remembering if those sorcerers could manipulate memories, so too could the sorcerer in his corner. So Peter arrives at the Sanctum Sanctorum, finding the interior frozen. Interesting. And if you look at the top of the stairs there, Doctor Strange is floating. So cool. Now this is the first time we have seen the Sanctum interior since the opening act of Avengers Infinity War, when Hulk, transitioning back into Banner, blasted a hole in the roof with the Bifrost from Heimdall. Maybe that hole was left open to let in a recent blizzard? But I don't know. The stairs have been repaired with a fresh layer of frost on top of them, but also one room in the Sanctum contains doors to other geographic zones, including one with a cold climate of heavy snowfall. Maybe one of those doors was left open. But the ice could be some form of magic gone awry, or a reflection of the Sanctum's mystical health. But it is worth noting that in addition to Doctor Strange dusting upon the snap, the official screenplay for Avengers Endgame confirmed Wang also dusted. So between May 2018 and October 2023, this place was abandoned. Strange's cloak of levitation clings to his shoulders over a heavy winter jacket, and underneath that, a hoodie for Columbia University, that's Doctor Strange's alma mater. And Doctor Strange has a mug showing a fox reading "Oh, for Fox's sake." Also, it is for Fox's sake that this bub now has a wider multiverse of X-Men and Fantastic Four to cross over into. Can we get on that, please? Then a shot where Peter pulls off a mask while wearing a new black suit. Now, designs for this integrated suit leaked via merch earlier this year. It has gold lining, described as having mystic spiderweb effects, meaning this was designed for Peter by Doctor Strange. Maybe one that allows him to toggle among past incarnations of his suit, and or use sorcerer magic to track and capture entities from alternate universes, like by whipping web strings made of magic. Now, this facility is a homeless shelter, and you can see a poster reading Beast on the far right there, the homeless outreach organization that Peter works at in the comics and played a big role in the PS4 game. Actually, the location with the witch decorations Peter was in earlier also could have been part of Feast. A leaked set photo that went around recently revealed a Feast truck parked outside the Sanctum. Maybe Peter volunteers at Feast as community service after getting into trouble. So Peter asks Strange to make it so that Mysterio never revealed his identity. And Strange is like, sure, okay, despite a stern warning from Wang. Why does Strange go along with this? Like, Strange must know how dangerous this spell is or how petty Peter's wishes are. Maybe Peter's legal troubles are becoming a security threat that Strange is concerned about, or Strange is egotistical enough to assume that he can address Peter's wishes with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. Or Strange has some other motivation we don't know about. No! Well, maybe. I'm actually wondering if Strange might see a benefit in deliberately crossing the streams of the multiverse to get ahead of a chaotic crisis he knows is coming, in which he can harness some interdimensional warriors, or begin to imprison some interdimensional threats. More on that strategy in a bit. Meanwhile, I'm not sure where Wang is headed, only to guess that he could be off to face Abomination in a cage fight in Shang-Chi. Though, if you look closely on the other side of that portal, you can kind of make out a structure with pillars and a trellis overhang. We actually saw that structure in the Camertage training yard in Doctor Strange, so that must be where he is headed. Strange conducts the spell in what looks like the Sanctum basement with the Eye of Agamotto once again around his neck. That's odd, considering the necklace's purpose seemed to be to house the Time Stone, which Thanos has atomized, and Thanos shattered that necklace on Titan in Infinity War, even though one brief shot in Endgame included a continuity error of Strange wearing it. Perhaps the necklace is a decorative piece that Strange reforged, or an artifact that he uses to store other mystical tokens of use to him, like a locket picture of Wang. Doctor Strange floats in the same pose that he made when looking forward at the 14,605 future outcomes, which makes sense because this spell involves Strange accessing different timelines in the multiverse. Now, as part of the spell, Strange pours a golden fluid in a bowl, which then strings out all pensive-like as a strand that morphs into a ring of runes, similar to the ones on leaked promo art. Now, that strand might be a piece of Peter's hair. Remember, Doctor Strange similarly used a piece of Thor's hair to conjure a spell that located Odin, and Agatha used a piece of Wanda's hair to conjure a memory-based spell in WandaVision. Now, hey, if you like what we do here at New Rockstars, or if you like cool nerdy clothing and gear, you should be checking out newrockstarsmerch.com on a regular basis to see what new stuff just dropped. Our partners at Epic Hero Shop have put together a full lineup of really cool gear, shirts, stickers, hoodies, all kinds of cool items to grab for yourself or to give as a gift and completely blow your nerdy friend's mind. Like if giving someone a Mobius on a jet ski t-shirt doesn't say, "Our friendship is real," I don't know what would.
It was real to me.
And they have just released brand new items inspired by Marvel's What If, including the newest edition of the latest Obsession line of t-shirts, Cosmic Witness. Now, these are limited edition shirts and won't be around for long. And whoa, as this Spider-Man trailer is dropping, I am getting a text saying we got some new Spider-Man No Way Home inspired designs on the way. They look amazing. There's actually an entire lineup of merch inspired by the Suicide Squad, including some great stickers and a King Shark backpack, and t-shirts in kid sizes, because nothing says back in school like a character that keeps graphically biting people's heads off. There's just plenty of other merch at the shop inspired by Loki, Black Widow, WandaVision, The Mandalorian, and all the other nerdy properties that we love. So check it all out at newrockstarsmerch.com. You'll be helping out our channel directly while also earning some major nerd cred. Also notice how this bowl is adorned with tiny figures of animals. Looks like there's an elephant and then a ram, and then on the left, it could be a lion or a tiger. Also kind of looks like an owl. Now the elephant makes me think this is a relic of Indian or maybe African origin, since those are the places you can find elephants in the wild. There is the Hindu deity of Ganesha, who has an elephant head and is known as the god of beginnings or new enterprises. But elephants are also known for their extensive memories, which could also connect with this being a memory-based spell. But it is tough. If we're gonna do any interpretation, we gotta account for all the animals. Now, Peter interferes with the spell, not just by physically stepping into it, but by verbally expressing his change of heart as the spell is underway. I don't know, maybe I just have Harry Potter in the brain, but it looks like there's some sorting hat rules going on here, and the spell takes Peter Potter's choice into account. Now, notice the spell forms 4 separate rings, which then tilt and chaotically break reality around them, opening up to this nebulous void on the other side, which doesn't look too different from the void of space of the sacred timeline that surrounded the Citadel at the end of time. In that Loki finale, we learn that the sacred timeline is a ring that circles back on itself. So that could clue us into the production design here. Each ring could represent a separate universe. One for the MCU, one for the Raimi-verse, one for the Mark Webb universe, maybe a 4th for Sony's Venom Carnage universe. The components of the spell colliding and breaking reality seem to be the mechanics by which alternate universe villains are now crossing over into this movie. The rings begin orbiting independently of each other, but then knock into each other, with each collision perhaps causing a crossover of a character or an entity from that universe into this one. Now, coming out of Loki and WandaVision, WandaVision, we're still not entirely certain how much those events affected the multiverse across all Marvel titles like this one, because this event seems to be separate from He Who Remains' sacred timeline breaking apart. However, since Loki established that time from the vantage point of the Citadel is occurring all at once, that breaking of the timeline could be coinciding with all kinds of seemingly coincidental independent events, like Wanda with the Darkhold, and now Peter and Strange in this spell gone awry. Now, at one point in this multiverse imagery, it flashes to this textured tunnel. This is actually taken directly from Doctor Strange's multiverse montage in the 2016 film, and then we get an even quicker flash of multicolored streams, which match the ones that shot out of Strange's arms and legs during that sequence. Now here, the frame cuts off whose limbs they're streaming out of, maybe one of the Spider-Verse villains being pulled into this reality, or one of the alternate Peter Parkers. Strange stops the spell, and the rings shrink down to handheld size, but they continue to spin at these chaotic angles. To me, this is also very reminiscent of the machine in the movie Contact, a title that I only bring up because it keeps weirdly coming up as a Marvel influence in titles like Doctor Strange, WandaVision, Loki. The machine in that movie had 4 rings, 3 of them spinning, all at different angles, and also opened an interdimensional portal. Then we move on to some truly Doctor Strangean imagery, the city of New York bending into donut shapes. I love this. Strange says, "You tampered with the stability of space-time. The multiverse is a concept about which we know frighteningly little," which is interesting because of all Marvel characters, Doctor Strange and Peter Parker are really the only title MCU heroes who have ever spoken of the multiverse, prior to Loki at least. Strange experienced a trip through the multiverse thanks to the Ancient One, and in Far From Home, when Peter met Mysterio, he proved that he had thought quite a bit about the multiverse.
I'm sorry, you're saying there's a multiverse? Because I thought that was just theoretical. I mean, that completely changes how we understand the initial singularity.
Again, I just think Strange knows a lot more about the multiverse, and he might be using Peter to get what he wants from it. Now, the city appears to be sinking at the exact part of New York City where the Sanctum Sanctorum is located, 1778 Bleecker Street. That would be not that far from Washington Square Park, as you're overlooking the river toward New Jersey. Now, in this shot, Peter looks at his hand as if his web shooters are not functioning. Maybe he's out of webbing, or maybe Strange's spell won't let him use them, but in either case, it does recall the moment in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 when Peter's stress caused him to run out of organic webbing mid-swing. That's right, let us not forget that the Raimi trilogy did not use classic Spider-Man web shooter devices, but made Peter's webbing spew out of his wrist skin. I can't wait to see that conversation between Tom and Tobey, and cue my favorite fat cut.
Peter, what's going on in there?
Next, this shot of a dust cloud swirling among some news vans, including a Daily Bugle van, and then a bolt of lightning strikes through it. We might be seeing 2 Spider-Verse villains here, Electro and Sandman. Jamie Foxx, who played Electro in the Mark Webb, Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man 2 in 2014, was the first past villain confirmed for this movie. Until now, Thomas Hayden Church Sandman from Raimi's Spider-Man 3 in 2007 has only been rumored. Then Strange faces Spider-Man on this speeding train through what looks like the freaking Grand Canyon. Aside from the mountainous setting, does evoke Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man famous duel with Doc Ock in the 2004 film. Strange duplicates the train car into 8 of them, similar to his Images of Icon spell that he used against Thanos in Infinity War. The train track also splits into duplicates, a fitting metaphor for the way the Marvel timeline is branching off into alternate courses when Nexus events rupture the sacred timeline. During this, Strange blames Peter for trying to live 2 different lives as what caused the spell to misfire. In addition to the One More Day storyline, this also reminds us, again, of the 2004 film, when Peter gave up his second life and paid a price for it. If you think about it, in the MCU, Peter's really the only prominent superhero who's tried to hold on to his anonymity when everyone else just kind of lives very public lives. And again, I think it's super odd that Strange is antagonizing Peter here when Strange was the one who agreed to do the spell in the first place. Strange pushes Peter's astral projected soul from his Spider-Man body, similar to how the Ancient One pushed Bruce Banner's astral self from his Hulk body. Now, as Strange does this, the surrounding world freezes, which they cleverly show with a ton of autumn leaves frozen in place, as well as the woman walking the dogs. Actually reminds me of that first Raimi movie where he used the background details like the fly and the spitball to convey Peter's spidey sense. Now, Peter is holding an interesting looking cube, and you'll notice it has the seal of Vishanti on the sides. What is this? I am wondering if this could be an artifact from Doctor Strange's collection, a kind of pocket prison that Strange uses to contain the alt-universe villains that he is trying to corral. I guess kind of like a Ghostbusters trap. This seems to be the MacGuffin football that Peter and Strange wrestle over possession of. Strange wants it for his reasons, maybe Peter wants it to release these captives back to their homes, thus No Way Home. Then Peter wears his Iron Spider armor on an overpass, the setting of a major set piece we'll talk more of later. Now, he wore that suit only in the beginning of Far From Home and in a deleted scene when he took down the Manfredi crime family. Other than that, he left it charging in his bedroom. SWAT police close in on a burning building. Based on Happy Hogan's reaction, I'm wondering if this could be that safe house that Peter, MJ, and Ned were using based on those early production photos that were released. And now one of Peter's enemies could have found it and bombed it out, maybe with some pumpkin bombs. Then a very quick shot that I think explains a lot of what is going on. Peter is in a dark, murky place, and then suddenly the lizard jumps out at him, hitting a transparent barrier. Whoa! So remember, Rhys Ifans played the lizard in the 2012 Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man reboot. I think this is the interior of that pocket prison artifact that Peter and Strange have been fighting over, and that Strange is collecting all these eclectic Sinister Six villains like Pokemon and Pokeballs, because he knows the multiverse is about to erupt and he wants to neutralize all potential threats before that happens. Look folks, if this Pokeball Ghostbuster trap bullshit sounds too crazy, I will direct you to literally any other shot in this trailer. This movie is gonna be weird. Then Spider-Man takes cover from a bolt of electricity, perhaps coming from Electro, though I can't tell if the bolt is kicking up dirt or if Sandman is forming a shield to ground the current and protect Peter. We return to that overpass where this woman in her car is just staring at Peter unblinking. We might be seeing time slow down again, and in Peter's spidey senses tingling as he senses the threat. Then the money shot of this trailer. A Green Goblin pumpkin grenade is tossed up from the collapsed edge of the overpass, and we hear the iconic laugh of Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn. This was the rumored appearance I was most excited about. After this guy died in the first film in 2002, Dafoe's Osborn continued to haunt the trilogy through the mirror of his son Harry, and he stole every scene he was in. Now, if we go by Alfred Molina's quote, Dafoe Osborn might have been brought into this reality from the moment of his death, my favorite death from the Raimi trilogy.
Godspeed, Spider-Man.
Oh. Don't tell Harry.
But instead, Strange's spell could have yanked Osborn out of the way of that glider. Either way, Osborn and Octavius think they're in a weird kind of heaven now. However, we also hear Green Goblin's glider in the cloud of dust from which Doc Ock's mechanical arms claw at us. Also a glimmer of green light. And then, as reported last December, Alfred Molina as Dr. Otto Octavius greets us. So excited to see this guy again. Now, it looks like a bit of de-aging might have been done to Molina's face, as he said was going to be the case, meaning we can also probably trust his other statements from that interview. He's wearing a turtleneck and tinted sunglasses instead of the blacked out frames and the low V plus high collar. Meanwhile, Peter suits up with the nanotech of his Iron Spider armor now coating him. Now, Doc Ock is climbing up on the George Washington Bridge, which makes the waters beneath him the Hudson. This is the river that Doc Ock drowned in the 2004 film. The moment in the river that Alfred Molina said this movie would pick up with his character from. Now, it's interesting how Doc Ock greets Tom Holland's Spider-Man with a friendly, "Hi, Peter," since his Peter Parker was Tobey Maguire. This would suggest that Doc Ock is more of an expert on the multiverse logic by which he was transported to this reality, and he might be able to conclude that any version of Spider-Man is Peter Parker, even if this Peter looks different. Or in this moment, Doc Ock might simply be greeting not Tom Holland Peter, but the Peter from his universe that he would recognize, the one played by Tobey Maguire. Or that Doc Ock and the others being brought here was a result of Peter's individual wish, and that his version of Octavius has more of a connection with this Peter. That's really why I don't think Peter's relationship with these villains is gonna be so necessarily antagonistic. He might be trying to help them go home, restoring the multiverse into separate universes and deciding he can live one life, a life with the consequences of his actions. Now, what about all those other cameos that have been speculated? The alternate Peter Parkers from those realities, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, or Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock. Again, there have been numerous unconfirmed reports. Tom Holland and Andrew Garfield both denied it. Many fans did not believe them. But I will say, it certainly seems more possible now. If the villains from these universes can get transported into the MCU, why not the heroes? Now, I would be surprised if Sony revealed those in a trailer, and while I would love to see a quick cameo of Tobey or Andrew through a portal or or something, I'm also totally okay with this being Tom Holland's movie, and the mere prospect of Alfred Molina and Willem Dafoe showing up has me thrilled beyond imagination for this film. We are in the end game now, my friends. Between now and December, New Rockstars is gonna be speculating like crazy about this film, and we got a lot more videos coming your way. And you can support New Rockstars by checking out our merch options at newrockstarsmerch.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at EA Voss. Follow and subscribe to New Rockstars. Thanks for watching.